Hello and welcome to a special convention edition Mark IV battle report on Tried and True. We have two brand new armies to share in our first ever Mark IV vs Mark IV Army Showdown. If you enjoy our content, please consider subscribing to the channel and keep up to date on our bat rep and podcast releases. If you would like to support the channel directly, a link to our Patreon can be found in the video description below. Our match today was recorded using our premier custom Nova Orgoth narrative scenario escort. Returning to the channel is longtime community member and podcast host Dan. Welcome back. We're excited to introduce the Mark IV Army Winter Corps led by Captain Baranova. Please discuss your thoughts and lists going into the game.
Hey Erica, thanks for having me back on the channel. I'm excited to discuss this army too. One of our community members, Chris, painted the majority of these miniatures and they looked fantastic on the table. So today I brought Captain Ekaterina Baranova. I racked up 3 spells, Freezing Grip, Superiority, and Iron Flesh. My battle group had 5 Warjacks in it for this game. I chose to take 3 Direwolves. I chose to take 2 Great Bears. The Direwolves are mostly kitted out the same way. They all have a shield guard head. They all have plow shields. And I took a mix of ranged weapons and a long axe on one of them. The Great Bears, they were both aggressive, I believe. And we had a Battle Mace and a Blasting Fist on one, and we have the Deep Freezer gun and a I think it was a Blasting Fist on the other one. And I really like that Deep Freezer gun with Baranova because it can crit and stationary things. I chose to take one of each of the Merc Solos because I kind of like them all. They were painted great, and I wanted to get them on the table. We had a couple Winter Corps officers, 2 units of Arcanus to help support the Jacks and power everything up, give them the focus they need, and it took one of each of the infantry units available in the core box, both the Shock Troop Gunners and the Winter Corps Infantry. For my command cards, I chose Infiltration, Old Faithful, Power Swell, Savagery, and True Inspiration.
Welcoming to Tried and True for the first time is fellow content creator and podcast host for Minority Report podcast, Terrence. Welcome to the channel. He has brought a 100-point army of terrifying Orgoth Sea Raiders led by the Howling Silence Kishtaar. Please discuss your list and strategy going into today's match.
Yes, thank you for having me. I was playing Kishtaar, the Howling Silence. My rack spells I used for her were Redline and Windstorm. The Jacks I took were the Jackal. I took 3 Jackals and 4 Tyrants. All 3 Jackals are the same, where they have advanced deploy, hunter rifles, and clawfish. And then I took 1 tyrant has a hunter head, belcher, and quad bolt thrower. The other one has a hunter head and a shredder and a quad bolt thrower. And then I finally have 2 Jacks with hunter heads, harpoons, and claws. The 2 units of the Warwitch Covenant, 1 Reaver Commander, and 2 Reaver Commanders, and Eyelash. The goal of the list is just to put in a lot of high-powered shooting to try to outlast, or essentially try to punish your opponent on their feat turn. Try to move as much stuff as possible, and hopefully after the feat, your opponent doesn't have enough left to really deal with your army after that. The Harpoon Jacks are just to remove shield guards and other things out the way that may stop you from removing what you actually want to remove. That's Kishtaar. So the command cards I took are Blessing of the Gods, which is primarily just to deal with buffs. Careful Reconnaissance, Old Faithful, Power Swell, and Sentry Duty, just in case there's some stealth.
Can Baranova's forces defend a small mountain village and rescue its civilians against an army of soul-reaving Orgoth? Let's get to the table and roll off.
Alright, so we started off the game as always. We wanted to go over terrain with each other. So we're talking about the forests that are in the middle of the table. There's a pond there. The items in the center, we're using these trench templates as bridges. So they're not rough terrain, but they allow you to cross the water if you need to. Kador's defending a village, so on my side we have a couple of houses and some walls. Otherwise, there's like some rubble and logs and stuff. I think you can cross the river with the boat too. Terrence, I think you went first, right?
Yes, I did. So we ended up the way the scenario set up, where you see the little crates, those are scoreable points. So I'm trying to position my army in such a way that one keeps Kishtaar somewhat safe. I found that in most matchups, Kishtaar loses because Kishtaar dies. So, but at the same time, with the forest there, I'm trying to run up to position as much stuff as close as possible I can, so that when Kishtaar is ready to feed, I can get as much in my feet as possible. As well as the one thing that I figured out when starting this matchup is I was kind of at somewhat of a disadvantage because Kishtaar has a very small control range, and the scenario pieces on the far edge, I'm looking at those and I'm like, I don't know if I can really get over there to ever either contest those or to even score those.
Yeah, there's even one like at the very bottom of the screen. I think the camera has it kind of cut off, but it's like right below the camera angle. We'll get around to playing into that later on in the game.
Yeah, so but everybody just run it up and put as much stuff as far forward as I can just to get ready to start shooting. And I'm looking at all the jacks on the other side. It's a lot of beef for Kishtaar, even Kishtaar to ask her to shoot through. And if there's shield guards over there, which make you spread damage, which is the last thing Kishtaar really wants to do. And I try to position my 2 units of war witches to fuel up all my jacks, so that Kishtaar doesn't have to at all.
Yeah, so the little crates that are around everywhere, those are the scoring, just as Terrence said earlier. Going to start my first turn, I'm seeing the quintessential problem from Mark IV. Well, not problem, but challenge from Mark IV is that Terrence has put just about every miniature he's got within range to shoot and kill basically everything I've got. So I already have to be super safe as much as possible. And oftentimes my play patterns with Baranova are that she's going to basically pop her feet and sprint up the board as far as possible turn 1. Luckily enough, the defenses in this town gave me a nice wall to sit behind. So at the start of my turn, I immediately start measuring, like, can I get you in my feet range? And that's going to make it harder for you to activate and get into position. And can I still be safe when I'm doing that? And I realized even with that wall bonus, with Kishtaar's feet, it's going to be real hard for me to not get hit by those ranged attacks. So I, early on in the turn, decided that we're going to create Fort Baranova. And I'm going to get her as close to the wall as possible with that feet up, tagging as many things as I can, reliably get. And I'm going to try and pile a bunch of warjacks around her so that Terrence won't be able to get line of sight directly to my warcaster. Hopefully, if I can weather the storm in the early turn or 2, I can maybe eke out an attrition advantage if I have anything left of my battle group or my units after the fact. So I did a lot of pre-planning because it was super important for me to be able to stay safe. And then I started activating some warjacks and some other models. So the Great Bears both have an aggressive head, giving them the heavy boiler special rule, so they can run extra far. I also realized that one of my direwolves was not going to be able to cross that wall, so I made sure to activate Baranova first, and I put superiority on it. So now with the extra +2 speed, it should be able to run across the wall to where I need it to be. At the last minute, I decided I'm going to push Baranova up even further to try and get some more things under the feet. So we're really gonna hug that wall this game. Each of the direwolves that I brought, which is 3 of them, they each have a shield guard head, and I've really been liking running that shield guard head, not just because it's the cheapest option available, but also because I really like the ability to kind of shunt damage to where I choose to put it instead of where my opponent chooses to put it. And great shot of the back of my head there. And I think that oftentimes causes a lot of decision mistakes and also drains the opponent's time and clock a lot because they're forced to say, well, if I shoot this thing, the shot's just going to go someplace I don't want it. So we're running to position all of these other guys, and the reason I bunkered really hard on the bottom side of the screen, especially with that one last warjack there, is because one of his warjacks has this hunter head, and I am really scared of that thing getting line of sight to Baranova, because, you know, under her feet, he's going to be able to hit those shots, I'm sure of it. So ultimately, we just cast a couple upkeep spells, and then we just got into position as quickly as possible. And then here we are running up the Winter Corps infantry, and we're just going to kind of place them in front of the rest of the warjacks and kind of hopefully create some sort of crumple zone. Like, if one of his jacks wants to come into melee, then we can maybe, you know, get some breathing room. Really, this turn is just about trying to buy myself space to be able to play a game of Warmachine, and Baranova's feat really helps with that. Earlier in the turn, you saw me move up prisoner 10, 28, 22, 24, I don't know, prisoner numbers. Prisoner numbers, yeah. She's up there next to the wall, and I had been angling at like a threat range, or maybe if I can give her Pathfinder with my solo, and get her to charge across that wall, she can deal with some of the early threats or some of that infantry unit that Terrence has brought. I think since we played this game, I've learned that the friendly faction Pathfinder ability from that solo doesn't actually work on the prisoner, so, you play the game that's in front of you, though, so that's what we're doing today. And before I end my turn, I'm just measuring all the threat ranges out, and we're discussing the extra command card that I was given, which is to move a miniature, one of the civilian miniatures, up to 6 inches. So I moved him through the rough terrain to get him away from being able to be easily captured. Over to you, Terrence.
So, gets back to me. I have, with the feet, he's caught a good portion of my army in the feet. However, there are a couple of things, like I have a jack with a harpoon that's in the back that's not affected. There is, but I'm trying to decide right now, do I kill Baranova? Because I was thinking that with the harpoon jack that I can move, I can walk up, harpoon the shield guard one out, and then potentially with blast damage and a couple other things, put enough damage into Baranova to potentially kill her? Or do I just take the 3 jacks that Dan has given me and I try to just remove those 3? And is that 3 jacks enough to hopefully, if I can kill all 3, is that enough to win the game that way? And then that way he just doesn't have enough fight left in him to hopefully last as the rounds go on. So I look at it, I keep staring at it, and I finally decide that, you know what, forget it. I'm going to go ahead and try to just kill the 3 jacks instead of going for the caster assassination. The one thing that makes this somewhat bad is the fact that because I have to move, because he caught some of my jacks, the -4 range for her feet, because of fire group only does -2 essentially to me. So I'm measuring to see where Kishtaar has to go to get everybody into her feet, and then to get her jacks into her feet so I can get the damage part of her feet. So her feet essentially the 2 extra dice on attack rolls for everybody in her battle group that's in her control range. But the best part of her feat is the 2 additional dice on damage rolls, dropping the 2 lowest, dropping 2 of your choice. So I sit there and I am going to shoot that 1 jack. The goal here is to try to ricochet into, I believe I'm ricocheting into the infantry to try to remove as much of them off as possible. That way, if something happens where I want to pull that jack out of position, I can. And I'm just plinking the jack with Kishtaar's Power 13. It does At least from Dan's phone, I can see that I'm doing somewhat of that, doing considerable amount of damage. Seeing how at Power 13 I was like dice off 7, I think. If not, if that's the one with the shield, I'm using dice off 9. So, and then I'm using her ricochet, which I still have to hit, which is the one bad thing about her having ricochet. And then the ricochet, I think we're debating on which model gets hit. The cool thing about her ricochet is it ignores line of sight, so I can pretty much pick whichever dude within 4 inches I want, and then so it kills that guy. I'm reloading to shoot again, use her gun again, and hits. Do some damage to the jack. I don't think I do any damage on that one, but now Kishtaar is done, and now it's time for the big guys to go. With her feet up, I have the first 3 jacks that's there in her control range. Now, I don't remember if this was the case, but I think I open fired one of the jacks to shoot to shoot the infantry. So now it comes time for the strike reavers. I typically, this was my first time really trying them in this list, and I'm not exactly sure how much I like them in this list, but they didn't do a horrible job. But the goal here is to use the feet on the light jacks with the 100 rifles. The 100 rifles have crit brutal, so with Kishtaar's feet, you hoping that you can crit. So you boost the hit, you roll 5 dice, hopefully you hit one. So here I'm moving Eyeless up, giving out the focus as I can, and giving Puppet Master to my big jack. And I'm trying to position Eyeless to go over and take that what are they, civilians, Dave? I think they are. So
yeah, the civilians,
yeah. So I'm trying to take the civilian. I think I found out later that you have to wait till the second player's second turn. I think that's how it works. But
yep,
I couldn't take it then for some odd reason. Then I did one big, massive CRA into one of the jacks, and then so that unit then. So it was 2 reasons for using the unit first. So one, it puts all those jacks within the 5 inches of the flag. So that means essentially increases the power of my weapon, which reduces his armor by 1. So all my jacks can do a little bit more damage. But I ended up, I don't think their combined range did a whole lot of damage. But giving out all the focus. Now I'm debating on, I think at this point in time I've given up on the idea of trying to go for the assassination, is to just take the jacks. So going there with the first jack, I will I'm probably using is, oh yeah, this attack on my belcher missed, and I was like, man, that one thing about Kishtaar and her feet is anything that's rolled bad, and when you miss an attack, it is very tilting, at least because everything that she needs to do on her feet turn is so much dependent on the dice, and when you miss a shot that you think you should be hitting, it makes it a real rough day. And I remember going up in both my quad bow throws get D3+1 attacks, and they both roll 2. So that's a feel bad in and of itself, when you hoping that they at least roll average to give you at least give you a shot at rolling with average shots. They can pretty much remove at least half, if not a whole heavy on their own, at least 3/4 of a heavy easily. But that being down one shot, they were that wasn't probably going to happen.
Yeah, I got really lucky. You rolled so few shots.
Yeah, it's a like. I know there's a lot of people that talked about how tilting Kishtaar is to your opponent, but EDC is not a particular play style I enjoy. But in this matchup, I was just trying to do essentially see where I would see how well my list was constructed. I've made changes to the list since then, but at least now I can truly see where Kishtaar can really get where she gets her work in.
Oh yeah, she does a number on my battle group in this turn, and I was really just hoping to kind of grit and bear it.
Yeah, I think by the end of the turn, I think I removed 2 instead of 3, but the third one's beat up pretty bad.
Oh yeah, it was only on a few boxes. I was really trying hard to redirect the most important and most damaging shots away from that guy with the shield guards, so that way you couldn't wreck him outright.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I'm just trying to weather. I'm trying to get it down to because my thoughts are at 3. If I have my 4 heavies, my 3 lights against your 2 heavies, I think I have a fighting chance.
Yeah, getting it down to that point, I think you have better than a fighting chance. It starts to look real bad for me if I'm only at 2 heavies, and they're not even at full health.
Yeah, and this being Kishtaar's feet turn, I don't know. I tend to take a little bit of time, just making sure, because it's a lot of dice rolling. It's a lot of shots to take, and so you tend up burning a lot of time on her feet.
Yeah, it's just the sheer amount of rolls that you have to make.
Yeah. And all the math.
Yes.
All the math.
So many numbers.
Because, I mean, you got crit brutals, you got all the different attacks, and this is me activating my second heavy to see how many shots he's going to get. And as you can see, I rolled a 1. So he gets a whopping 2 shots as well. So not a good day.
Yeah, the volume fire guns are like the talk of the town these days, but there's always a chance that you roll minimum shots and you get a feels bad moment. And it really is hard to not get tilted at your own models in that way sometimes.
Yeah, because I mean, volume fire in and of itself is a great rule, right?
Yeah.
And it's those days where you sit there, okay, only thing I need to do is roll a 3, and you don't roll that 3.
Just give me average.
Yeah, I don't need average. Like, to me, it's always a bonus. I always hope to roll average, but it's a bonus when you roll the extra one.
Yeah,
right?
you feel like you're on top of the world suddenly.
And especially depending on how you spread out your damage. The thing about Kishtaar's feat, you roll so many dice, is that your damage rolls tend to never really truly be horrible. I've had a couple of rolls that's been bad, but not really. But the fact that you can't re-roll the number of shots, there's nothing to fix that. So it is what it is.
Yeah, it's the one thing fate decides for you. Everything else you get to influence.
Yeah. And as you can see, like,
first one's down.
Finally take one heavy. Yep, the first heavy's off the board. I am, at this point in time, I realized that the only way I'm going to win this game and scenario is I got to do enough work at the beginning of the game so that I can spread out my army, because her limited control range, most of her jacks to go contest and control those zones that's at the far edge of the board, essentially they're going to be by themselves, and I'm giving them up essentially just to go score those points. So as you can see, I shoot a jack with the harpoon, I bring it in, and I'm swinging at them with red line. These are POW 17s with the claw. You do have the option of taking the Ripper, which is another weapon. It starts at POW 17 and goes to 19, but it has crit spread. But as you can see, the claw is cheaper in points, but it seems to be able to do just as much work as the Ripper can.
Yeah, it's good to know. I think I kind of screwed myself. If I had not moved that civilian with that command card, I might not have been able to get dragged through the middle of the board there. Oh well.
Yes. Yeah. And so this is me moving my solo, thinking that I'll position him to take the civilian, and I realized that I can't, so I'm moving back because there's no point of him going up there and doing that if I can't do it that turn. And I realized that I pushed Eilish all the way over there for no reason.
But thankfully, Eilish is still good on a flank. He can still use his Puppet Master and jump around and stuff, so he's still pretty mobile. He'll be able to still contribute.
So here I am going for a harpoon shot. It hits. And I don't. So the thing about the harpoons on the orgoth models, they all have to do damage in order for them to actually trigger. Alright.
Alright, so we go over to my second turn, and I'm already starting to feel the burn. I just don't think that I have the longevity to continue to play this game. But with a whole unit in front of me, or between me and the caster, I'm like, I think I need to try and bunker down one more turn. He's killed everything that I had hoped to be able to leverage as an offensive piece this turn, because he took the furthest forward jacks away from me. So the goal of this plan is to try and make sure that I'm safe from an assassination again. So we go back to Fort Baranova. We're going to try and start interacting with the scenario, and I found that I can try to run my Winter Guard infantry down the bottom. They'll be able to cross that river, and they can, sneak a guy into the zone that's kind of off camera at the bottom, and that will allow me to score a point. And I'm trying to keep in mind other ways that I can engineer getting another point on the civilians here and there. I believe I paid for an Old Faithful command card at this turn to try and get some legs back under one of my warjacks and maybe get some work done with it. And otherwise, we're going to try to empower my jacks and do what little amount of work that we can. I have a solo that moved up and scored one of the civilians, and I believe that solo is also able to battle plan the prisoner, which is why in a moment I think she's going to be able to charge past that wall. But mostly I'm focusing on trying to get some scenario points, staying alive, and whatever work that I can get done in terms of attrition is going to be gravy past that point, because I am really starting to bleed those important pieces that I would otherwise need to get that work done. I think I had some early shots being taken by some of the solos in the backfield and Baranova herself. She does have kind of like a small pistol built into her sword. So, it's only a range 10 PAL 10, but with focus to boost, that can still do some work. She takes one infantry model off the table, and then I start to deliberate my next set of choices. So I realized that I've placed a couple of these civilians, or my models, in relation to those civilians in some awkward spots, and I can't quite get there. I think I asked at one point if the defender can pull civilians, and so because I was going to try and gallows the one in the center towards me and then score it, but unfortunately it's not available to the defender. Only the attacker on Terrence's side is able to pull civilian models, things like harpoon or gallows. So we're going to head up to the middle of the board. Right. I think I wanted to try and I can't remember why I was futzing with this model. I think there was it just wasn't measured precisely the first time, so I walked it back to get a more pristine measurement on it. And this is the one with the deep freezer gun. And I really have been enjoying that deep freezer gun with Baranova. Just the chance that you get a crit is like 23.5% or something like that. So that's almost a quarter. And if this thing, that's under the Invocations of Wrath spell that she has, that it's effectively signs importance on your attack rolls. And
it's a really good spell.
Yeah, it's a very good spell. I mean, I wish it was damage, but I know we'll never get that again. You know, Vlad 1 is just not coming back, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, that thing has an AoE 3 crit stationary, and that can really shift the balance in matchups sometimes. When you land that shot and you get a crit, like suddenly you turn off a couple of warjacks or stationary half a whole unit, and then, you know, where are they? And then they have to think of other ways to get out of this predicament. And I really like that tech piece that she brings. I used Empower on my Winter Korps casts and souped up the rest of the jacks just to try and make sure that they could get something done. And then I moved forward with my Shock Trooper gunners, taking advantage of that bridge there, because they don't naturally have Pathfinder. And the forward gunner I place in such a position where prisoner would still be able to kind of charge past him. If he wasn't able to kill that one infantry model, then maybe she could sneak in there with her sword and get a blood token off of him. But they end up actually doing a decent amount of work here, and I think they're able to clean up most of those infantry models, if not all. Again, that's signs of importance. Yeah, go ahead.
I want to say it was one left.
Right, yeah,
Maybe
I think
one.
so. I think I flubbed one of these attack rolls or damage rolls or something. But signs of importance on their attack rolls really does help that unit, because they only start at Rat 6, which is, you know, good for an infantry unit. But,
Yeah.
you know, sometimes they just need that ever slightly, a little bit more boost to kind of get what they need done. So here we go, the prisoner going in. With the state, I was really expecting to kill like 2 or 3 infantry models with her, but with only one left, I decided I was just going to charge this warjack. If I can put a dent into him, maybe chop off an arm or something, it might make it more difficult for him to bring some of that additional ranged heat. I did not realize that it had hyper-aggressive, so now it's walking towards me.
Yeah. It's a very good rule for orgoth jacks.
Yeah.
Hyper-aggressive does a ton of work. It tends to get most people, and I don't think you took out any systems, if I remember right, but you did do some damage to them. Yeah,
I kind of tickled him a little bit. I got in there, but it wasn't enough to take out like the 2 columns that I would need. She's charging Weapon Master POW 11, I believe, 11, 12, which is respectable, but against a heavy, you know, good luck.
Yeah, they're armor 19, so that's like dice off of 9 or 8.
Yep. I mean, you really would need to crank all of the dice. You know, 1 or 2 spikes isn't enough to get that done. So here we are back into Fort Baranova. We're just kind of moving up the Jack Fort as much as possible and staying safe by camping focus. I think I also dropped Iron Flesh on Baranova this turn because I was really scared about like taking blast damage shots and about, you know, taking a stray hit here or there, or maybe the that ricochet rule that she's got. There were a lot of bullets flying everywhere, and I was like, I would love some extra armor, thank you.
Yeah. I was really, the thing that got me is the fact that I couldn't, with my standard bearer gone, there's a damage buff that's automatically gone.
That's right. Oh yeah, I remember thinking I've got to kill that guy because I really can't have him continuing to corrode my armor basically.
And then that was a gallows you hit.
Yep.
With your spell slave guy.
That solos does pretty good work, honestly. An extra gallows to pull something in from an extra angle is really good. My hope there was to kind of try and pull him into melee range with some of my jacks, and maybe just to kind of engage him and tie him up, and I couldn't quite get him that far. And then when I realized how close he was to Baranova, I was like, okay, we really got to clog this guy up. I can't afford to have him charging through this like truck lane I just built and randomly killing my caster. So I ran and tied him up with the Necromancer solo, Alexia. Okay, over to you.
Yep, so start of the turn, feet is gone. I am measuring right there to see if that Jack is in Kishtaar's control range, and I believe he was not. So that means he doesn't get any focus. However, my question here was kind of how do I play this? I think I kind of messed up. We'll see as the turn goes on, but I'm trying to see how many boxes certain guys have left, and two of them are completely, I believe, untouched, and then we have another guy that's pretty beat up, but like you said, you used the card on him, so he has some less boxes, and then I end up scoring the two civilians, so I get those two. I am walking up, filling up focus. If it wasn't for as good as Witch Coven were, Kishtaar would be truly unplayable as a focus 6, because she wants to take this huge battle group, but she has nowhere near the focus to fuel.
I just feel the same way about Boris. He wants all these jacks, but he really relies on those arcanists.
Here it is. I rolled to see how many shots. I got 4 shots. I missed the first shot. Then they were talking about some math here, whatnot, what their defenses were, and I think something had superiority on it, so I missed it.
Yeah, the direwolves rise to a defense 13 naturally with superiority. It's pretty great.
And I'm boosting the damage rolls on the volume fire shots to see if I can finally get rid of that one jack that I had started on.
Yeah, I can see the damage grid. I think it's only got 6 or 7 boxes left or something.
And looks like he's left on like 3 boxes.
Right. Can't quite get it done.
Yeah. And so my whole goal here is then what I was thinking about when the turn first started is how do I need to start spreading my army out. One, I had to get some focus to the jack that got pulled out of my control range, so he can go, because he has a quad bow thrower. He has his ability to do work has to go. He has to be able to do work hard. It's just a real bad day. So here I am going back to returning on to the last guy. He gets removed off the game. I think I do that with I think I did it with the light jack, the jackal.
That sounds right.
He is charging, and to see if I can put enough damage into the jack that has me tied up, so I can use my other jack. The cool thing about the tyrants is that even with guns on both sides, they still have a head melee attack. So I can still activate him, hit Alexia with the head, and still shoot later on. But I don't think I do enough damage to the heavy to really warrant. Charge attack seems to have done pretty good. Here we are going through his attacks. He had red line on him, so everything's +2. I probably could have removed my empowered that jack a different way. Put one less focus on him, and then repo card. I use a repo card a lot of times on the Witch Coven, just to repo one of them into melee range with something, just to give my army +2 armor. I mean, to -2 my opponent's jack's armor, just to get her out there. It works a lot of times, but it was just me. I think I got a little bit kind of focused on just, maybe a little bit too focused on just trying to kill as much stuff as possible.
Well, you had a game plan and you were sticking to it.
Yeah. I mean, that's what Kishtaar, that's our best plan. And a lot of times, that's our only plan. And I'm killing, I think I just killed Prisoner. Because I didn't want that thing going around just mulching things. And I had heard about a guy earlier that weekend who had lived a dream with Prisoner and got her up to like a power 28 or some kind of crazy stuff. And I'm like, that's not happening to me.
Yeah, I think that Adam did that earlier that same day, actually, I think, when we were recording this.
Yeah. And I did not want to live that life.
No, you didn't give me enough infantry for that. That was like, you had to take down a sea of trolls to do that.
Hey, look, when it comes to dice, and I have rolled 2 shots on 2 turns with my volume fire guns, I was like, anything's possible, man. You start one-shot jacks after a while, and I'm like, just don't do it.
Yeah, I think on this turn you missed a couple of attack rolls that you needed a 4 to hit, and you came up with 2 or 3 a couple times.
Yeah,
it's just uncanny, some of the bad luck you were getting.
Yeah, I think about it now when I look back on it. I probably should have, if ever I was gonna go for a turn, try to kill Baranova. It should have been now. Even though I don't have my feet, I still have enough guys. Now I have fire group. Here I am moving Kishtaar up, which I find out later on the next turn, which is absolute positive nightmare. I should have never did it. Once our feet was burned, Kishtaar really had nothing really else to do besides just cast fire group and get somewhere safe. If you look on that forest that she was standing close to, there was a perfect spot right there in the nook that I could have went to, and she'd have been just fine. But as you'll see later, removing her up behind the wall was a complete mistake. Here I am running the jack over to I'm activating the other heavy to try to see if I can kill one more heavy to try to take Dave down to 1. And
I saw those 3s there. I think that was one of the shots you missed.
Yes.
The very important ones too.
And I end up, that jack ends up living. I walk over with this. You can't see it, but there are 2 jacks in the zone down there. And
two infantry.
2 infantry guys in the zone down there. And I'm trying to kill them so I can potentially Swift Hunter into the zone. As you can see, I'm running over. I'm trying to score to keep up. And back to you.
Yeah, you weren't just keeping up. You were crushing me on scenario. I think I tried to show the score, but it was a little too high for the camera, unfortunately. But I think at this point I had 2 points and you had like 6 or something, 7. I looked at that scoreboard and I looked at the boxes remaining on my warjacks and just kind of the position that everything you had, and I was like, Terrence, I think you only left me one choice. I think I have to kill Kishtaar here on this turn, because I don't think I get another turn. Either I lose all of my warjacks or I lose Baranova this coming turn. I just don't have enough pieces left to continue playing this game. So, trapped between a rock and a hard place, I just start measuring stuff and I'm like, I think I can get a significant amount of shots on her. And, clock being what it is, I didn't have the time to spend to do math, to sit there and think like, well, how many, my dice off damage rolls, like how bad do they look? How many shots can I actually get on them? I just said to myself, I was like, there's only one way out of this game, and that is A, I have to land a freezing grip on Kishtaar, and then B, I just shoot her with everything that I've got and pray. Step 3 is pray.
Yeah.
So thankfully it wasn't much of a turn to think about going through here. I was like, all right, well, maybe I can stay behind the wall and still hit her. Nope, out of range. So I definitely needed to present my warcaster flapping out in the breeze just to even take a shot at this. So, yeah, go ahead.
It was a really crazy thing because the whole time, like, my fellow castmate Damon is sitting over there. He's off camera down to the bottom, and he's like looking at me crazy. I'm like, what? And then the reason why I did so much scenario was because Andy had made a comment the round before to say, hey, maybe we shouldn't have got Kishtaar. He just gonna shoot all this stuff off the board. And after I got ahead of scenario, I was like, Andy, look,
I'm doing the thing.
Winning on scenario.
Yeah, you, like I said, you were crushing me on points. I really did not expect you to score so quickly. Usually you get that scenario advantage when you're the second player, but it's just really hard to contest everything with it being so widespread. I mean, I was enjoying that because there was a certain amount of unpredictability there. Here we are. I'm just going through the motions. I'm just trying to contest and score and everything. So his Swift Hunter couldn't get that guy to the zone or to that small little patch of boxes there. I just snuck in there, scored a point, and did basically nothing. So we walk up. I think I cast Invocations and then Freezing Grip, or maybe I just boosted the Freezing Grip. And I think I rolled exactly the number that I needed.
Yeah, you rolled exactly a 12 to hit on the station area.
Right. The odds weren't great, but it worked out. I was like, I would kill for Puppet Master on this. And then I think I sent up what was left of the Shock Troop Gunners and a Winter Corps officer here walking up and taking a hand cannon shot. It's big flintlock pistols, man. And you're spending some focus to shrug off some of the damage. And then I lined up a spray with my Shock Trooper Gunner. And I think that might have been what did her in. No, she lived through that, right? I think, and in retrospect, they have an ability where they can aim and shoot twice, and I think I should have done that with this guy, but, in the middle of the action, I didn't think of it. And now I'm moving up these Winter Corps Arcanists, and I figured I'd empower some jacks to try and maybe take a range shot at her, and the rest are just going to open up with Razor Wind to see if we can plink in some damage there, here and there. My second unit of Arcanists, whatever's left of them, is just going to take another couple of ranged attacks as well. I think you were reminding me that the other guy wasn't able to move because he was engaged. But
yep, because the Arcanists finished her off.
Yeah, so we got a couple PAL 12s in there, and that was the game.
Okay, first off, it was an absolute blast hanging out with you guys at the Broker Brawl. Shout out Steve and Seth. You guys run an amazing event. It was a lot of fun, and it was super cool to be able to get a joint podcast battle report. So on behalf of Tried and True and Delaware Warmachine, thank you so much for a Minority Report. Terrence for coming on and playing with us. And we're really looking forward to the Siege Invitational in July. So at this time, do you guys mind sharing your game and your thoughts?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me. Anytime you guys need somebody, I'm glad to fill in. It was a fun experience. But overall, I thought we were testing out the scenario. The scenario was really fun to play against. It was something different. And simply because of the way I feel about Kishtaar as a caster, I always feel like I'm playing down. And it's like I feel so much pressure to make every turn she has perfect. But as you can see, based on the end of the match, I probably, after I feed it, just should have backed her away. And I think I'm in a position, basically based on what Dave was saying, I was in a better position than what I thought I was when my hope was on the second turn, on the turn after my feed, was to kill 2 more jacks, but that just didn't happen. But Dave, what did you think?
Yeah, I think sometimes it can be hard to see the forest for the trees. Like, I was definitely feeling the attrition burn much worse than I think that you estimated that you were up on. And it was just because, like, my melee pieces were gone, my ranged pieces had like the lower power guns left, and most of them were kind of carrying a shield instead of a second weapon. So it was going to be real difficult for me to bring myself out of that hole, especially when the vast majority of your battle group was wholly untouched. I really enjoyed this scenario. Again, it's a breath of fresh air. It's really cool to see, like, it really matters that you're hanging out on this hill here because the supply crates are there. We got to rush over to that side of the battlefield to get to those supply crates and rescue them. And, moving around the civilians and stuff like that was also a lot of fun. I think I'd like to see, I'd like to see more stuff like this in the future because, as much as I love to be competitive, I always find myself going, oh, great, I'm playing King of the Hill again. So after a while, there's only so many steamroller zones I can look at.
Yeah, I completely agree. The idea of the map, the idea of the scenario, even like we had said, overall, I thought the scenario was really fun. And like we had talked about earlier, the far zones were like, I kept looking over like, man, what do I do about this? Like, because essentially, like I said earlier, I felt like if I go send something over there, essentially I'm giving it up for the rest of the game. Because with the 10-inch control range, Kishtaar is never... I would have to run her to one whole side of the board to simply for her to say, all right, she can get those, whatever I put over there, back in her control range. So I was trying to keep the fight to the middle of the board, and hopefully you wouldn't notice that I was winning on the edges, but that didn't happen.
I always keep an eye on scenario. I'm a cater player. I got to go for it. I had a blast hanging out with you and the rest of the Minority Report guys that day. I think I'd just come off of a 4-round tournament, and Erica was like, hey, you want to do another one and do a battle report? And I was like, absolutely.
Yeah. I had played 3 rounds in the qualifier that day, and I had went out, I had ate dinner, so I'm sitting up there like, man, I'm ready for a nap. And Erica's like, hey, did you forget that you were supposed to play? I said, nope, but I'll be there.
That's awesome, dude. Thanks so much for the game. It was a blast playing against you, meeting you and Damon, and I'm ready to take my licks next time around, so I'll see you in the next one.
All right. I appreciate it. It was great hanging out with you guys, too. Great to meet you for the first time. I had a blast, so anytime.
Absolutely.
Hey, real quick before we go, Terrence, can you share with everybody where they can find you online and talk a little bit about your invitational this summer?
Yes. So on Facebook, you can go to the Minority Report Presents the Siege Invitational. It is our yearly qualifier. It will be in Memphis, Tennessee on the weekend of July 22nd. It is a social on that Friday where I cook, barbecue. We have a whole feast for everybody. We get to hang out, play games. This year we're going to probably have a narrative event there. Also, the Saturday we'll have an invitational, and then on the Sunday we have a steamroller for all those people hanging out still on Sunday as the invitational finishes up on Sunday morning. Our podcast is called Minority Report. You can find us on Apple or on all your streaming services. And just love the game. And if you ever want to reach out, just reach out.
All right. Thanks so much. Thanks again for playing, guys. It was great having 2 brand new Mark IV armies on the channel. And look forward to seeing you at the next big convention.
All right. Later.
Thank you for watching. If you would like to check out some additional content, including the original video and audio of our battle reports to support the channel, please click our Patreon link in the video description below. If there are any factions, warcasters, or warlocks you would like to see on the channel, please let us know in the comments. And as always, we'll see you on the next Tried and True Battle Report.